your artist project has blown up so much since we first worked. It's been, it's so funny. Whenever I'm with other artists, I always use you as an example of just this like go get it attitude, but also just how you had a plan and you
Thanks, man.
stuck with it. And I think that's such an important thing for artists where it's like no one knows what they're doing, but you have to make a plan and you have to stick with it. And
Yes.
that so much is the key to success. It's not what the plan is, but it's just doing it.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
It's,
it's so true. But
yeah.
thank you for saying that. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, of course. So, we always start the podcast off with our guests telling us about how they got their start in music. So I actually don't know
Yeah.
your story. So I'm like
Wow.
genuinely really, yeah, we never like talked about it. It's not something you
Yeah,
really
we
bring
didn't.
up.
Yeah, I mean, it all started. No, when I was genuinely, I was like 6 years old. I started playing drums.
Right.
And that was like, I think I saw that movie, That Thing You Do. You remember that movie?
Dude, I just saw
Classic.
like a clip on TikTok yesterday
Oh,
of
dude,
it.
it
And
is
I was like,
absolutely classic.
oh, it's so good.
And I saw the drummer Shades, and I was like, "Mom, Dad, I have to be that guy." So like, can y'all get me a drum set for Christmas? And they did, and they were like, "All right, fine." So they got me, like a drum set from Walmart, and I was actually like decent. Like they were like, "Okay, like he doesn't suck. Like maybe
Right.
there's something to this."
There's
So we
something here. Yeah.
yeah, so we went from Walmart, then we went up to like Sam's Club in Arkansas, which is where I'm from, and got like a $100 drum set as opposed to like a $10 drum set.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just started playing all the time and I loved it. And it didn't like I was in like little, garage bands with my friends when I was growing up, but it was always just I was the drummer.
Right.
And then I remember, man, like life-changing moment. I was 16, riding in my friend's car, and he had John Mayer's Continuum. He had just bought the album, he turned it on, and I had heard of John Mayer, everybody had, but I had never
Right.
really listened to him. And Slow Dancing in a Burning Room came on, and I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, I have to know everything about this guy. So I went home, I sold my drums, bought a guitar, and I was like, I'm going to be John Mayer. And then I realized, like, 5 minutes into it, like, I will never play guitar like John Mayer.
Yeah.
I love the way he writes songs. And he
Yes.
opened my mind up to the world of like singer-songwriters and people who are just incredible lyricists and melody and because kind of coming off of just being a drummer, like I was just always having fun just playing as loud and as fast
Right.
as I could, but then like really digging into like, oh wow, like he's putting this line together and the song together, and I was completely hooked.
Yeah, Continuum was one of those I feel like for so many songwriters where it's like people listen to that album and they were like, "Oh, this is like almost apex songwriting." In my
Dude,
opinion,
it,
it's
it like
so good.
changed my life. Like
Yeah,
legit changed my life. Like I'm sure I would have found it some other way,
right,
but that album was totally what started my obsession with songwriting. And like, I was already playing guitar and like singing in church and playing drums in church, and I was playing like 2 or 3 times a week with bands, like
right.
with clicks, with in-ears, with a band. Like I was getting all these reps all the time, but it was never something that was like I was really taking it seriously from like a craft standpoint
Right.
until about 16. But then I heard this story that John Mayer, the first song he ever wrote was like a huge hit. It was called No Such Thing. I'm sure
Yeah,
you've heard that
of
song.
course. Yeah, great
And
record.
so I had this thing in my head of like, unless I'm that good, I should never try to write songs. So like I was terrified to be bad at it. So I was like,
Yeah,
well, I'm not really going to let myself try because I don't want to suck. Like I don't want this fantasy in my head to be a disappointment. So I just never put myself out there and like actually tried to write a song. And then like I think I was like a junior in college, going to school at Arkansas, not studying music. It was always just a
what were you
hobby for me.
studying? I'm curious.
I was studying advertisement and public relations, and I've never used that degree once. So
I counter that just seeing how you built up your artist project, but we'll talk
thank you.
about that later.
But yeah, okay, I appreciate it. Maybe I did use it. But like, yeah, I was so like, music was always such a passion, and I was so obsessed with it. And like, again, I was doing it a lot in like church and stuff, but that was kind of my outlet. It was never something that I was trying to do for myself. And then I remember I went to Austin City Limits, the music festival in Texas, one year with a bunch of my buddies for our fall break in college, and I just saw all these people on stage, and I was like, dude, that is what I want to do. Like, I don't know if I have what it takes to get there, but like that's what I want to do.
Right.
And so then I got back home, and I was just like, I'm just gonna write a song, even if it sucks. I'm just gonna go for it. And the second I finished my first real song, I was like, the light bulb clicked on, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I genuinely like it. Just I haven't stopped since then.
You just been
You know,
writing songs.
it
Yeah.
was wild. But like, I mean, I'm giving you the long version here, but like from then, that was my junior year of college, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna write as many songs as I possibly can. And I had written about like 6 or 7 songs, maybe, like at the very most. And then my best friend started dating a girl from Nashville whose dad owned a studio in Nashville, and he came to town one time, and we were all hanging out, and she was like, "Oh yeah, Dad, Jake's been writing some songs," and he was like, "I want to hear a song," and I was like, "Yeah, one day I'll play you a song." He was like, "Nope, there's a guitar right there. I want to hear it right now." And so I was like, "Oh my God!" So I picked up the guitar and I just played him the 2 songs that I had at the moment, and he was like, "Hey man, I think those are really good. You can use my studio for free anytime you want." And I was
Wow.
like, "All right, sick, let's do it." And probably 6 months later, I hit him up and I was like, "Hey, if you're serious, like, I think I've got enough songs to make an EP. I'd love to use your studio." He was like, "Yeah, you can have this week. Come on, and you can use the intern at the studio to like help you engineer
Like engineer it.
Because
Wow.
I had
Okay.
never even seen a studio. Like I,
Right.
there's, you know,
You just had these songs that you were writing, and
yeah.
were you
And
even
like,
demoing them, or what was the process there?
literally nothing. I had voice
Yeah.
memos. That was
Yeah,
it.
there you go. Okay.
And I'd never heard of Pro Tools. I had never. You know, I was so unbelievably green. Like I had nothing.